Hi, Ellie. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm really excited. I love chatting to fellow swimmers and swimming fans alike. So I'm very excited to be here.
Oh, thank you so much for giving up your time and coming on. It's an honour to have you on today. What pool are you training at with the Paralympic team at the moment?
I've just spent the whole weekend with the Paralympic team. There's 34 of us, and we were just training out at Chandler over the weekend. We just did a really heavy block of racing. I'm talking like 3 events a session, which is a lot for me. But yeah, it was great to all come together for a few days and just be together.
Oh, that's awesome. Are you all staying at the same apartment block now, or are you all sort of then spread out again?
We were staying at the same accommodation on the weekends, and then we left our Swimming Australia camp this morning. So those of us that don't live in Brisbane have all had to go to different apartments because we have to stay in the state until we get on our charter flight to Tokyo.
Right.
And yeah, those that can go home have gone home to spend the last few weeks with their families, which I'm very envious of. But yeah, it's a great opportunity for us just to be able to go to Tokyo. So I'm just trying to keep my eye on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Will you all come together and have another camp before you fly to Tokyo, or?
Yes. So usually we have our staging camp before we go into our benchmark competition for the year. We are going up to Cairns just like the Olympic team did, and we are doing a 2-week bubble up there. So basically, the idea is to have the whole team in a single location where there isn't many COVID cases, which is quite difficult to run away from at the moment, so that we can test negative and get on the charter flight from Cairns to Tokyo.
Wow, that's amazing. Will you start your taper before you get up to Cairns, or will you just do it once you're up there?
I was actually chatting to a few swimmers about this at lunch today, about how everybody does their taper so differently. For me, I'm a short taper kind of person. I only like a 5 or 6 day taper. So I'll be starting, probably around about a week before we get on the plane. Whereas some of the bigger boys, they need the 2 or 3 weeks. So taper time is very interesting when you're all on team together, because some people are working extremely hard and some people are starting to taper off, and the mood swings can get quite wild.
I bet. And what does a training day look like for you at the moment before you go into taper? Like, talk us through swimming, dry land, recovery.
Yeah, so it was interesting, I think, the way that Swimming Australia has structured their competition calendar lately over the last few years, where we have our trials right before we leave for our competitions now. We used to trial in like March or April, and now we're trialing a little bit later. And so for us, like, we do a really heavy block and then taper off into trials. And then we only have a few short weeks to really do another heavy block. And so I'm currently in the midst of that. So it's pretty high intensity, pretty high kilometers, but we've been training our body for quite a number of years to be able to deal with that without being injured. And so, I think the next few weeks of training are probably going to be the hardest training that we've done in the last few years, which is pretty hard to stare down the barrel of. Yeah. But there's a wonderful taper just waiting on the other side that we're trying to get to, desperately trying to get to.
That's the spirit.
Yeah, but like you said, it's not just swimming, it involves a lot of dry land as well. So our strength programs are pretty heavy at the moment too. And I've had 2 shoulder reconstructions, so doing a lot of rehab, prehab style work is probably the most important part of my training. Like, that always comes first.
Right. And how often would you be in the gym doing strength work at this time?
We are still doing our 3 sessions a week. As we get a little bit closer to the competition, that'll drop to 2 a week, and the 3rd session will be more of like your recovery style, making sure that everything's working properly before you finish off the week.
Yeah. Do you tend to sort of have a lot of massages, physio type stuff with your shoulders, or are you just okay doing all the prehab and activation?
A lot of the prehab and activation kind of put any injuries at bay. And I think as I've become more of an experienced athlete, knowing, if a niggle is just a niggle or if it's turning into something a bit more sinister.
Yep.
So I guess the rehab does put things at bay, but when I know that things are starting to flare up a little bit, the fortnightly check-in with the physio might turn into like a weekly check-in with the physio. And then we have a really great team. Like in the Australian swim team, everyone works together quite well. And so if there is a flare up and the physio addresses that, then, they'll talk to the massage therapist, they'll talk to the swim coach, and they'll talk to the strength and conditioning coach, and everybody works together and is on the same page. And so I think probably currently on the Australian swim team, you'll find that there aren't anywhere near as many injuries now as there were 10 or 20 years ago. And that's just, I think, a real process of trial and error over the decades.
Oh, that's good to hear. Looking at a training session, what would be your sort of, I know you're a fellow backstroker, what would be your favorite backstroke set that you love to do?
I am a very big fan of drill sets. Lots of skills. I used to do a bit of coaching myself, and I always said to my kids, like, you can work on your fitness as much as you want to, but as soon as you take a break, that starts deteriorating straight away. Yep. I think you can make the biggest gains in your swimming just purely through technique and skills. And you'll find it like an Olympic Games or a Paralympic Games, everybody is at their absolute peak fitness. They've pushed their bodies to the limit in terms of fitness, and you'll find it's the ones that have those skills really well developed that are the ones that are going to win the race, especially when it comes to backstroke. Like, I remember watching the Olympic Games, and the Americans are so great at underwater work and just off their turns. And like, the rest of the world is quite good at their swimming speed, but they were just winning the races time and time again off just their tumble turns. So I really like working on that side of swimming, the perfectionist side of swimming.
Yeah. How many dolphin kicks do you do off the wall in a race for your backstroke underwater?
Yeah, I do 8 off my start, and then I only do about 4 or 5 off the turn, because that's what I love about para swimming. Everyone has like a unique disability, and you kind of have to find what works for you. And so for me, I'm actually quite good at underwater work for someone with one leg, but unfortunately broke my foot a few years ago, and my underwater isn't as good as it used to be.
Oh no.
And so now I have to kind of get up quite quickly and swim, because that's now my strength.
Right.
And it's been interesting, like, how my body, even just in terms of aging, like, things change. I'm not as flexible as I used to be, although I'm a lot stronger than I used to be. And so you've kind of got to figure out, how you can use your strengths and how you can develop the weaknesses, because new things pop up all the time. Like, your body never stays the same. And I just love that about sport.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So do you lose a little bit of ankle flexion when you break your ankle?
It wasn't my ankle I broke, it was my foot. And I used to have like this really floppy foot. Like it had like, it was kind of like a hand, like it just grabbed the water. And now it just feels like a stiff plank of wood. And it's really frustrating. Like, I used to be able to kick, 1250s under a minute, and like just with the one leg. And now I'm struggling to like make the 120 cycle. And it's just really frustrating, because I remember what I used to be able to do, and I just can't do that anymore. And people tell me that all the time as they start getting older and things change. Like, I remember when I used to be able to do this, and I remember when I used to be able to do that. And now I'm the one saying that to the rookies on the team.
I know, that's really hard to accept, isn't it? As you get older. What are you looking?
I think,
you go.
Knowing that your body changes and that you, like, a lot of swimmers have injuries and come across challenges. I find people like Kate Campbell and Emily Seebohm, going to their 4th Olympics, just incredible. Like, people don't understand how much of an incredible feat that is. And then, the swimmers that go into masters swimming and do really great things there, like, people just blow me away. They really do.
Yeah. Well, you're going into your 4th Olympics as well. Don't forget that.
Yeah, I know. But I have a good old case of imposter syndrome, and it doesn't really feel like I'm doing it.
It definitely does. I know my daughter was in about year 3 at the 2008 Olympics, and she did a project on the Olympics, and she actually featured you as one of her athletes. So we've been following you ever since then.
Oh gosh, I would have been like 16 years old then.
Yeah, you're pretty young. I think she followed you and Kate Campbell. She followed both of you because you were both at that Beijing Olympics.
Oh,
yeah.
She picked two of the good swimmers. We're both going to our fourth, and that like never happens. So she should buy a lottery ticket.
Yeah, I'll let her know that. What are you looking most forward to about Tokyo?
It's actually really interesting when I was on camp over the weekend. Our old coach, head coach Brendan Keogh, came and spoke to the team, and I got up to thank him in front of the team because I'm one of the team leaders. And I got really teary, like I just started crying. And then one of our fellow swimming teammates got accepted a position into our team last night as well. And I've been on the team with him since 2008. And then I was crying again. And so for me, like I was lying in bed last night thinking like I'm such a sook, but for me, like I just really appreciate swimming so much more than I ever have. And like being able to go through Tokyo through COVID, I remember just like laying in bed last night thinking like, oh, I can't love it anymore, like right now. And so for me, being able to watch my friends compete at the Tokyo Olympics first, I know that I'm going to be an absolute wreck. Like lying in bed last night thinking about it, I started getting teary again. And then the thing I'm most looking forward to for myself is like walking into the pool for the first time with my teammates and just being like, we got here, you know, we're the last ones standing kind of thing. And so I know I'm going to feel like very proud. And like, that's not even anything to do with the competition. It's just like what we've had to go through to get there. And that's a great feeling to have because I know that I'm not really ever going to walk away from Tokyo disappointed no matter what happens.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you think after Tokyo, when you've reassessed, will you keep going on to Paris, or will this be your last Olympics?
This will be the last one. Yep. And I have said that after every games that I've been to, but I am turning 30 this year and things are starting to get very difficult in terms of recovery and training. And I love being part of the Australian swim team and I love swimming so much, but I just want to enjoy it in more of like a social level because like the pressure is quite a lot. And like I said, I always think back to when I was like 22 and what my body could have done. And I kind of just want to just appreciate swimming for what it is, not for like what it was for me kind of thing. Yeah,
absolutely. Oh, in London and obviously in Rio, you got back-to-back 100-meter backstroke golds, and you mentioned you had your shoulder reconstruction that was in between those two Olympics. How did you recover from that to get up to win another gold medal in Rio?
That was a really interesting journey for me because in the swimming world, a lot of the coaches, their target for the week seems to be kilometers. Like, you know, you swim 35 kilometers this week, you're going to swim 40 next week. And then in the heaviest part of your season, you like swim 60, like everything just seems to be based around kilometers.
Yeah.
So I kind of shredded up my shoulders because I was doing like a lot of 60 to 70K weeks back to back. And then after the London Games, I had to kind of have both my shoulders pretty much stitched to get back together. Wow. And then I had to really reassess my training program because I couldn't swim like 60-kilometer weeks anymore. I could probably only swim about an hour a day. And so I was doing a lot of like the skill work. And then most of my training was actually outside of the pool, and I completely changed my training program. And it worked really well for me. I remember, I think 8 months after, it would have been about 8 months to a year after my shoulder reconstructions, I went to the World Championships that year. And my coach, he actually said to me before my 100-meter backstroke final, you have no expectations on you. You're still in recovery kind of thing. Just do the best you can. And if you feel good, go for it. And that was his advice. And it was like I did like a 2-second PB and broke this world record that had been standing for a decade.
Wow.
And I could not believe that I had felt so underworked going into the competition, but just the shoulder control and the strength that I developed worked really well for me in that area. And so, I kind of followed that training through into Rio, and I started increasing the kilometers a little bit before Rio, and it didn't feel right to me. And my time in Rio, I wasn't actually happy with, even though I still won.
Right.
And that experience has kind of just made me question everything about training and like what sports science can offer, and you know, what strength and conditioning can offer, and all of the other elements of training. Like, it doesn't necessarily have to all be done in the pool.
Yeah.
But it's very hard to find a coach who is kind of willing to just dive into the deep end and take those it's quite a big risk.
Yes.
But yeah, so I'm back in a program now where I am focusing a bit more on kilometers, but I'm kind of just trying to keep my coach a bit happy. But I think for the Commonwealth Games next year, I really want to try and risk it all again.
Yeah.
I only have the 100 meter freestyle. I don't need as much fitness for the 100 meters as I do for the 400.
Yeah.
And so I'm really going to, I think, experiment with that program again and just see what I can do. And it could all go terribly wrong, but it'll be the last hurrah. So
where are the Commonwealth Games next year?
Birmingham, I believe.
Birmingham.
I'm not actually sure. I'm kind of just focusing. I think it's Birmingham, but I'm just focusing on Tokyo at the moment.
Of course.
Yeah, I'm gonna sit down at the drawing board with my coach and just come up with some crazy training plan for next year. Yeah. Have a lot of fun with it, I think. Yeah.
Did you see today that Swimming Australia announced the Australian Swim League, which is going to be watched next year? So obviously sort of modelled on the International Swim League. That's a really great step forward for swimming, with multi-class and able body both together.
It is. You know, I obviously trained with Kate and Bronte, and so they were part of the ISL and had so much fun. They said it was just like a completely new experience. And I know that swimming, like, Australia is known for being, you know, a swimming country. Yeah. And so I think this is going to be really great for the sport in terms of exposure. But I just like when I saw this morning that para swimming was going to be in it. Yeah. I remember I was sitting at the back of the team bus and I was thinking, like, you would not have seen this when I first joined swimming. Like, when I first made the Australian swim team, it was so segregated. And now, you know, we have this incredible opportunity, and like para swimmers are swimming alongside, and it just, it warms my heart so much. And it makes me appreciate the sport even more. So I'm probably going to cry in bed tonight again. But
you're allowed.
I know, I just am so proud of like what we've accomplished in such a short amount of time in para sport. And like, yeah, we just keep smashing through the roof, and it's just, when's it going to stop?
Let's hope never.
I hope it never stops.
No. I mean, it was great to watch the trials a few weeks ago and have para and able body all mixed in together, and it was great. Like, I thought Prime TV did a wonderful wonderful job sort of pushing it out to everyone, and the fact that it was like worldwide exposure, that's amazing. I don't think any other country does that within their Olympic trials.
No other country does that. In fact, in the US, the para swimming squad in the US isn't even part of Swimming USA. Like, it's a completely different organization, which blows my mind. But I think that Swimming Australia and the media in Australia really got a taste of para swimming at the Commonwealth Games in the Gold Coast.
Yep.
And how much the public just embraced like the para swimming. It was really cool. And so I'm really happy that Amazon Prime just took a leap, and Swimming Australia have always pushed for us, but it's at the end of the day, it is the broadcaster's decision whether they broadcast the para events. And yeah, they just took this like leap of faith, and people were loving it. Like Ben Hance's 100 meter backstroke world record was by far the best interview I've ever seen on Australian television in my life.
There's real characters like Scooter, and they're just lovely that they've been able to bring those personalities to the broader sort of public. It's wonderful.
Yeah, and even like the Olympic team, I remember I was rooming with Bronte Campbell when the trials were on, and she was not racing until the second last day. And I really wanted to watch Kaylee McEwen's 100 meter backstroke race because I used to train with her up at USC. And so I was like, I'll just quickly go into the bedroom and watch this race, and then I'll come back out. And I came back out and I was in tears. I was sobbing, like I couldn't even speak. This is how much I love swimming. She's like, what's wrong? Like, what just happened in there? And I was like, you have to watch it. I was like, it was the best thing I've ever seen. And then Arnie did her 400 freestyle later that afternoon. And then I was in tears again. Yeah, the Olympics is going to be an emotional roller coaster.
I know. tears are coming to my eyes just talking about it. Oh, I mean, you've been part of that whole journey to sort of bring Paralympians to, you know, such a broader sort of base. How do you feel about being a role model for all those young multi-class athletes around Australia?
It's an honor that I definitely do not take lightly. It's really important for me to be a role model because I didn't have any Paralympic role models really when I was younger. My inspiration when I was a junior paraswimmer was Amanda Drennan, who was also the same classification as me, and she raced at the Athens Games. But I didn't know about parasport until I was about 12 years old. And when you're a kid and you have a disability and you already feel really different and you already feel like you're not very capable or no one really expects you to do too much, it's really nice for you. And when it comes to like the Paralympics and Amazon, you know, just even broadcasting us or like, you know, being on the Women's Health magazine cover this month.
I know.
Like I just think that if I had that when I was younger, I already had quite a bit of confidence, but I can imagine if I didn't, like that would have definitely made me dream really big. So if it just helps one girl out there or one boy out there, then like, yeah, it's made me so happy. But it's also more of just an acceptance within the community that I know like we're pushing that agenda. So people don't look at me with sympathy anymore, which is nice. And people don't kind of see me hopping into the fast lane at a public pool and look at me a bit funny. Like they just know that, you know, oh yeah, maybe she can swim fast instead of like, what is she doing here? And just those small things that you don't really realize if you're an able-bodied. Yeah, it makes a big difference.
Yeah. I watched the Rising Phoenix documentary on Netflix, which features you, which is absolutely wonderful. I loved it. How did you get approached to do that?
I don't know how that came about. My manager just rang me one day and said, there's this documentary about the Paralympics. Prince Harry's going to be in it, so you have to do it. And so they were filming in London and we had just finished our World Championship. So I stayed back an extra 2 days. And I was kind of in the mindset of anything that promotes the Paralympics, I'm going to do. And so I filmed this documentary and it was extremely hard. It was 2 days of non-stop filming in this fish tank where they were pulling me down by my ankle, like 5 meters deep over and over and over again. And I was pretty exhausted because I just raced 10 days, but we didn't know it was going to be on Netflix or anything. And then the producers sent me an email and said, you know, I think that we can get Netflix onto this. Wow. And I was thinking like, yeah, right, mate. You guys would say that. You guys, like everyone that makes a documentary would say, I think we can get Netflix onto this. And then Netflix got in touch and was like, we want to interview you because we're going to buy this documentary and it's going to be shown in 180 countries. And I was like, wow. Oh my gosh. But I remember watching it for the first time, and once again I felt this imposter syndrome. Like there are 7 other incredible athletes who had gone through so much in their life, and like here's me that just had like crappy old cancer. Like it's not that much of a story.
It is a story.
I know, but it was amazing, like seeing some of the stories, and a lot of the home footage that they showed in my part I'd never seen before. Like really? My mum, I'd never seen my mum's reaction to winning my first gold medal. I'd never seen it. And so it was weird because I was watching this home video at the same time that like millions of other people were watching like this very personal home video. And it was really overwhelming. Like I cried again because I think everyone just wants to make their mum proud. And to see her just like not even being able to breathe was really special for me. And like to be able to see it in a Netflix documentary was weird. But it definitely like changed the perception for a lot of people, I think, the documentary. And David Beckham messaged me on Instagram that week and was like, love the documentary. I didn't reply because I don't know. And everyone's like, you're an idiot. You didn't reply to David Beckham. But I didn't know what to say. Thank you. Like, I don't know. But no, it was just really cool. Like it was received very, very well across the globe. And hopefully like disability equality is quite good in Australia, but hopefully it will be for the rest of the world too in time.
Yeah. It was beautifully shot too. The photography on it was amazing. So they had you in a fish tank, did they? And they pulled you down for those underwater shots?
Yeah, they did. So I remember I was really anxious that day because I knew that I was going to be in the water all day, and I get cold very, very easily, like way more quickly than most people do. And so I didn't want to sound like Mariah Carey or anything, but I was like, that tank has to be at least 28 degrees. If it's not 28 degrees, I'm not getting in, kind of thing. And I was like, I'm trying not to be difficult, but I promise you that I will not be able to finish the shooting day if it's not at least 28 degrees. But anyway, it was nice and warm. And the way that they filmed it, it was kind of just like in this big glass box with cameras all around it, and they kind of had beams of light going into the water. But yeah, the way to get the shots was they had a scuba diver who was just in there with you the whole time, and they would go 3, 2, 1, and they would pull me down by my ankle to the bottom, which was about 5. I was pretty deep. Actually, probably wasn't 5 meters, but it was really deep, and I had to hold my breath for as long as I could, and then go back up to the top and do that 150 times over.
Wow.
But, I had to open my eyes underwater too. And I wear contact lenses. So I was doing it all like I couldn't see anything. I couldn't really hear anything. And I was just like already feeling really anxious. It was a really hard filming day.
Yep.
But then when I saw the footage at the end, I was like, wow, like that, I'm going to have that footage for the rest of my life. And it's incredible and it looks beautiful. Yeah. And Netflix is definitely going to buy that.
Did you get to meet Prince Harry?
No, but I have been fortunate enough to meet him on 2 different occasions, just through being involved in paraswimming. The last time I met him actually was the week that he announced, him and Megan announced that they were having another baby. And so they were in Australia at the time.
Yeah.
And so I also got to meet Megan, and I only had a few minutes with them, but for some reason, out of all of the questions that I could have asked Meghan Markle, I asked her if she ever gets used to seeing her face on a tea towel. And she was like, okay, who's this weirdo? And I've been kicking myself ever since.
I'm sure she was thinking that was a really interesting, insightful question that she hadn't been asked before.
Well, I was like, yeah, don't ask her a question that she's never been asked before. And so I just went straight to the tea towel for some reason.
Just looking back over your career so far, what would be your most special race that you've finished over your Olympic journey?
There are 2. I would like to say the women's 4x100 medley relay in London, because in Paralympic swimming, the relays are done based on point scores. So me being an S9 category, I'm 9 points, and you can only have a certain amount of points. And so you don't know really who's winning until the last 5 meters. It's pretty crazy. So right. We won that race by I think like 0.03, and there were 4 other teams coming into, like between first and fourth was within like 0.2 seconds. It was so much fun. But my most special race for me was 100-meter backstroke in Rio, as you mentioned before, because I had, that was a really hard, difficult competition for me. I had so much self-doubt. Like it was the very first time I'd ever had a panic attack at that competition. Actually, it was right before the final, because and having a panic attack for the first time is a horrifying experience, but at a Paralympic Games, it's not ideal. Yeah, I don't know. I just didn't think I was really deserving of being there, even though I hadn't been beaten in the backstroke for about 3 years and I was the world record holder going in. I just felt like I didn't deserve to be there. It was weird. But getting out, getting over that like major anxiety and then going out and winning the race. I remember like walking onto the podium, and I know this is going to sound stupid because that's all I've been talking about, but I usually don't cry. And Yeah, I just cried because I was so proud of myself for like just getting through the whole week and getting through the experience that I had half an hour prior to that. It was so special for me.
Yeah.
Actually, I think since that day, I've been a bit of a sook. I think that was a sook trigger for me.
What's the marshalling room like at an Olympic Games? What happens in there?
It's pretty similar to a marshalling room that you'll find at an Australian trials or a state championships. You have your swimmers who are sitting in the corner and are very serious. You have your ones that have been friends for 10 or 15 years that are just having a good old catch up, which is usually me.
Yep.
You have your experienced swimmers and your inexperienced swimmers. So it's kind of like everybody finding their own corner and respecting each other's different approaches. You don't really get people in the Paralympics like trying to psych each other out. Like I remember when I was a kid and I was learning to swim, my coach was like, watch out for people who are trying to psych you out. I've never really come across anybody that's consciously come across anybody that's trying to do that. So it's nice in the para swimming world. And I think I see it in the Olympic swimming world too, where everyone is actually genuinely friends.
Yep.
And, sometimes the losses are hard, but you also celebrate everyone else's wins for them as well.
Yep.
And so, yeah, it's a very respectful place, I would say, the marshalling room at the Games. But, it was interesting for me last year because in swimming, you have different levels of nerves based just depending on, I guess, what your mood is that day. And I remember at the London World Championships in 2019, I was so over nervous. I knew that I'd gone too far. And, this girl was shadowboxing in front of me and I was sitting in the corner of the marshalling room listening to a meditation track. And so, it's just about finding what works for you, like how to pump yourself up, but also how to bring yourself down if you need to.
Yep. At optimum level of arousal.
Yeah, like I just learnt about that at uni actually that semester. So I was like, okay, what are the tactics that I learned to bring this down? And I was listening to a meditation track in the corner of the marshalling room, which I'd never done before, but it worked for me. So.
Yeah. You've got a sports science degree, do you?
Yeah, I have a sports science degree. It took me 9 years. I finished it last year, but my favorite subjects were, the psychology subjects and the nutrition ones as well.
Yeah. How will you use that in the future, do you think?
I probably won't. No one uses a university degree. Come on.
Some people do.
I know. Yeah. No, I do really enjoy working in sport. So I'm sure I will use it at some point. But in my family, it was compulsory for the kids to go to university. That was a rule that my dad set upon us. And I think if I had just taken a bit more time, I probably would have studied something more in the health industry still, but not necessarily sports science. So I don't really want to do a master's degree or a postgraduate degree without really understanding what I want to do first.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Definitely. And I know you're an S9.
Very expensive.
Oh, I know it is, isn't it? I know. Yeah. It's when I went to uni, it was actually free.
Oh, don't say that to me. I'm still paying off my HECS.
Yeah, I know. It's hard. I know you're an S9 athlete. How do you get classified for an S9 classification or whatever in the
Paralympics? So in the Paralympics, everyone has a disability. And so you can't expect someone with no arms and no legs to race against someone who has just one limb missing. So we get categorized, and the physical disabilities range from S1 to S10. And so 1 being the most severe and 10 being the least severe. So me being an S9 means that I'm one of the have less severity of a disability. And then they have a certain way that they classify us. So we basically go into a room and they do like a functionality test on the land. So like they test our flexibility, our strength in different areas. And then they get us in the water and we have to swim all the different strokes. And they see how we move in the water. And they do it based off a point system, but it can be very, very, very controversial. We've seen a few people, like not to be like name any countries specifically, but that in the past have maybe not been as honest in their physical testing as they should have been.
Right.
And it's almost like in paraswimming, you don't necessarily see doping, but you see something that we call misrepresentation, where, and so it can be very controversial. I'm very fortunate that in the S9 category, I usually only race against people that have an amputation of some sort, whether that's above the knee or below the elbow. And it's kind of pretty clear cut, quite literally.
Yeah.
But when you get to like people that have cerebral palsy, you can have different severities of cerebral palsy, and some can be even in the S2 and some can be all the way up to S10.
Right.
And then when you start training and becoming more physically capable and physically stronger, does that mean that you put them up a class, or is that punishing them for training well? And it just gets really tricky. So I'm very happy that I'm an S9.
Yeah. And what, I know we touched on your degree. What do you see yourself doing when you finish up your swimming career? What would you like to pursue? Something in sport?
Yeah.
Any ideas?
I do a bit of work in the media now. I do a little bit of work in the media now. So I think I'd like to explore that, only because not everybody gets that opportunity. And I have quite a lot of friends now at Network 7, and I know that I'll have a few opportunities there. Yeah. But it's not necessarily like a huge passion of mine. I do enjoy the idea of like being around a swimming pool, and obviously you are able to do that through commentating. So that would be a great job. Yeah. But I did a bit of coaching after the London Games, and I really enjoyed using my exercise science degree actually to coach like 7-year-olds. I was like a really weird coach where I would be like telling them all about the energy systems and like, and all of that. But I always said to my boss, like, I would do this work for free, and I just loved it so much, but you have to pay me, which was great. And so I think I do want to stay in swimming somehow, but my biggest dream is to own my own swimming school. And so I think over the next 5 or 6 years, I really just want to work at a few swim schools and like see how they run, and not necessarily go for a job that pays the most or anything, but one that I can learn the most. Yes. And so I've got quite a few mentors already that I've met through swimming that own like swimming school empires. And I know Phil King, who owns King Swim. He's a family friend of ours, actually. So I think that I'll have a lot of guidance and a lot of mentors, but I really just want to learn how to do it very well, and then cater towards minority groups. So like swimmers with disabilities, I never, was taught to learn to swim in a specialized group. But my actually biggest dream is to, in Sydney, teach a lot of adult refugees how to swim, because there's no one that really caters for I've met quite a few that don't know how to swim, and they are embarrassed about it, and they don't really have anywhere where they feel like there's a safe space for them. But it all just depends on what works out. I really want to own a swim school one day, though. Yeah, I can see that, the Ellie Swim Centre. I would love it. And I get I am an emotional person. I think I've just realized this. I get very emotional when, the kids that I was coaching swam well, and I just get very proud of them. And I just know that, seeing like all of my customers doing well, it will genuinely make me very happy. Yeah, I think that's really lovely. That's a lovely career to have ahead of you. It's nothing more rewarding than teaching and coaching kids. I think that you get so much back from them because they're just so sort of earnest, which I love. Oh, I really loved coaching kids. And you do develop a very close bond with them, and sometimes when they're having a hard day at school, they just sit with you and talk about it, and they tell you what they're doing well, and they're just the best. I love kids. Same. If you could give it a tip to a swimmer starting off now on their Paralympic journey, what would it be to motivate them? My probably the biggest tip would be, I notice it a lot in junior swimmers, is not to compare yourself to other swimmers, especially in para swimming, because one, your disability is will be very differently to most others, but even just kids that don't have disabilities, everyone develops at a different rates. We've seen people on the Australian swim team who haven't made their first swim team until their late 20s.
Right.
And I know that when you're a kid, you're in the marshalling room and you're saying to the girl next to you, like, what time do you swim? And then you go to the person on your other side, what time do you swim? And like, you're so self-absorbed with everybody else. You're so absorbed with everybody else's results that you're not really thinking about your own. So I think when you start comparing yourself to a lot of other swimmers, you can get very frustrated very easily, and you can get down very easily. But just kind of, I know it's hard when you're young to focus on your development and what you're doing. I think that's one of the best things you can do.
Yeah, definitely. I find it really interesting that there are so many people on the Paralympic team who are in their late 20s, some 30, a much sort of older cohort than on the able-bodied team. Why do you think that is?
Well, I'm so fascinated that you said that, because when Brendan Keogh came and spoke to our squad the other night, he was talking about the Athens game, and the average age of the Athens Games team was only 17.
Right.
Yeah. So now we're seeing a lot of para athletes who are a lot older. So we have a 34-year-old on our team.
Yeah.
And then quite a large number of athletes that are in their late 20s.
Yep.
You are starting to see that a little bit in the Olympic team too, but more so the Paralympic team. I actually don't have an answer as to why that's happening. For me, I know that I haven't left the sport purely because I just love my team so much. And the idea of me like being able to swim with my team for as long as I can is very appealing to me.
Yep.
Whereas I think on the Olympic team, obviously there are more swimmers that are vying for the spots. And so it is a lot more competitive, like watching Kate and Bronte qualifying for the Olympic team. If they had gone, say, 0.4 slower, they may have missed the team.
Yes.
Whereas you don't necessarily have that in the Paralympic team. And so it's probably more to do with the number of competitors and like the pool of competitors.
Right.
But and also we just love being part of the Dolphins Swim Team. Like, you can't get rid of us. I don't know when Matt Levy is going to retire. He's going to his 5th games. Like, mate, when are you going to hang your goggles up?
I know. And he holds down a full-time job as well, doesn't he?
Yeah, he works for Westpac too. So
yeah. Wow.
He's a very impressive fellow. But it was quite funny at trials. He's like, I don't think I have much longer of this in me, because it is getting really hard to make swim teams. Like if I look at what my qualifying times were back when I was 16 making the Beijing team, they are considerably faster now, because more kids are aware of para sport, and so they're training younger. They're getting in straight away like the able bods do. And it's just like getting so competitive. It's great. I love it.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So good. Well, Ellie, thank you so much for joining us today. And I wish you every success with the Tokyo Olympics coming up, and hope that you have a wonderful time.
I know I will. And I'm excited to get back and to hopefully meet all of your listeners personally at some pool, at some point across the country, at some point in our lifetime.
Yeah. Well, master swimmers are always very friendly, so I'm sure they'll come up and say hi, because they love.
I've heard. Yeah. The idea of racing for a bottle of wine instead of a gold medal is it's like almost just as appealing. Very excited.
And drinking the wine afterwards is also very nice.
Ooh, I didn't think about that. That sounds great.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. Okay. Bye, Ellie.
Bye.
Bye.